I had a friend who made cuento. He was in Babel. I forgot if this was high school now or college,
Mm-hmm.
but he was in Babel, and I know he went to a chess event of Ateneo to cheer.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, but what happened was I don't know if he was kicked out, but for sure he mentioned that he was cheering. I okay, I'm not super accurate with the facts, but I know it was either every Atenean move or every Atenean when the Ateneo player eats a piece of the opponent. I really hope it was the eating because that's at least parang may nagawa I supposed to like just a normal move.
Yes.
But so Hi, everyone. Welcome back to yet another episode of the Sports Season podcast, where we get to know the sports that you know about and those that you should know about. My name is Javi Sison, and for this episode, we're going to take it to the board and talk about chess. Our guest for today is a former team captain of the Ateneo Chess Team and an Arena Grandmaster, or AGM, Mr. Gavin Ong. Hey, Gavin, first of all, it's nice to meet you, and thank you for guesting today.
Nice to meet you too, Jigo. Happy to be here on the show. Mhm.
Yeah, we've been in quarantine for these past few or many months. What have you been up to over these this long time?
Oh, okay. So actually, I was in doing a lot of things during quarantine. But during the early days of the quarantine, like when February hit, and then classes were put to a stop, I thought about what other things I can do. Well, of course, thesis was still there, right? So we had to worry about thesis and everything. But at the same time, I was also thinking about improving my chess because we had so much free time at home. While everyone was baking goods, while everyone was like selling food in in their homes, right? I was actually reading a lot of books and trying to catch up on my chess because I didn't have that much time in school to do any of that. Actually, also during that period around April and May, that's when I actually got the arena title. Because when I'll go into that later, right? So
Yeah,
I was able to chase that title over the time when I was during the quarantine period. So yeah, towards June and July, I was trying to find work, but I felt that I needed to help the family business, so I ended up going there and helping out there in the family business. So I'm sort of like juggling um, chess toward the family business, and also I have time to exercise more. So I also do
yeah.
I work out, I go to the gym. Yeah, so I have a small gym here set up.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because actually the reason I invited you to be the guest is I saw your post on Ateneo Trade.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're offering chess lessons, right?
Yes,
So
yes.
because I think start of quarantine, my parents bought a new chessboard. So me and my little
Mm-hmm.
brother would play a lot. So I was thinking, I was like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I always beat him, but
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking of taking lessons because I was like, it'd
Mm-hmm.
be pretty cool. It seems like something that that would be interesting to learn and something that would be nice to have in your back pocket.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I invited you because I feel like chess has been on the rise with Queen's Gambit
Mm-hmm.
being such a hit on Netflix. But I'll ask more about that later. But yeah, that's basically the gist of why I how I got to know you also. Um, going back to how we're still in quarantine and still on lockdown,
Mm-hmm.
compared to I guess most, if not all the sports, chess I think for me at least would be one of the, if not the least affected by the pandemic. It seems like there was such a smooth transition to online
Yes.
tournaments. Would you
Yes.
agree?
I would totally agree with you. Before the lockdown, we had so many tournaments over the board online. We saw so many over the board tournaments here and there in the Philippines. Ever since the pandemic hit, it was so fast for the tournaments to
Mhm.
transition to an online setting. So the national leg tournaments are being played also online, and then the federation tournaments are also being played online. So everything was really fast. Yeah,
Yeah.
transition. Yeah.
Um, Okay, but is there, I guess, like a difference, playing online as opposed to playing face to face? Is there a difference in, I guess, your approach or just in the environment in general?
Oh, okay. So with regards to, actually, people have been asking me the same question in the past. My friends, actually, they asked me, "Oh, Gavin, what's the difference with playing online and playing physically over the board, right?" Well,
Yeah.
the main difference normally is you can see when you hold pieces, when you touch them, that's when you actually feel you get to play, you get to feel immerse yourself in the sport
Mm.
more. Unlike if you play online, you don't get to really feel the pieces. You get to only all do is hold a mouse or a trackpad,
Yeah.
and you just move the pieces all over, right? So there's a huge difference as well. So it's also not really in the game itself, but I think it's
Okay.
more psychologically, right? So
Mm.
if I were to ask you, if you're gonna play, let's say you're a basketball player, right? So
Yeah.
I actually also follow a lot of basketball. So imagine if you're a basketball player and you don't get to see your opponent face to face. I know that's
Yeah. Yeah.
impossible, right? Especially for basketball, but it's different when you see your opponent and right in front of you.
Yeah.
There's a different
For sure.
impact to you psychologically. There's a different impact to you with the game you play and the way you prepare. Like, for example, if you're playing a casual game outside, compared to when you're actually playing a league game, it feels different.
Yeah.
The way you play. So I guess that's the main difference. Because online, you can hide your face. You don't need to show your face in front of a
Yeah.
lot of
Yeah.
people, right? So that's the main difference. Yes. I
Okay.
wouldn't say one
I
is easier over
guess.
the other. Yeah. I
Yeah.
wouldn't say
Yeah.
one is easier. It's just different. Yes.
I think, well, maybe not easier, but I think compared, like, let's say, to basketball, if you're practicing shooting over, like, let's say, like a standee, as
Mhm.
compared to an actual person who's like right chasing after you, maybe that's
Yes.
kind of similar to that. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. I guess a follow up for that would, is there an intimidation factor when you play chess? Like, obviously now you said that you can hide your face, right?
Yes.
When you're actually in a face-to-face competition, is there some sort of, because in other sports obviously there's like trash talk, there's
Mm, mm.
stare downs. I don't think you can
Yes.
trash talk in chess. I don't think that would be allowed, but is there that kind of dynamic when you're playing face-to-face?
Mm. So actually, if you've seen Queen's Gambit, Beth tends to trash talk a lot, right?
Yeah.
Especially during her casual games, right? Well, in real life chess, that doesn't happen. There's really not much trash talking you can do because that can be caught as called as distraction, or yeah,
Okay.
it can be, you can call the arbiter and call for distraction. But in terms of what you're talking about, like the face to face and all of that, yes, I think there is a level of intimidation because well, I've been reading a lot of books, right? And I'd like to quote one of the books that I read. It's by, who's this? Jeremy Selman. So he's an international master in the US, and he said something in his book about um, chess is like a caste system. The Hindu
Right.
caste system where you have the Vaishya, the Kshatriya, all these things,
Yeah.
the Brahmins. In similar in chess, we have the GM, we have the IM, we have the FM, we have the CM, and we have all these rankings. And if you see your opponent, like, wow, my opponent is like this high, because in chess you can measure
Mm.
how strong you are. In
Yeah.
basketball, people know that, oh, I'm playing against, for example, LeBron James in the Lakers, right? Oh, I know that this team is strong. So there's already a psychological impact on you before you even play the game. I mean,
Yeah.
you can try to mitigate that, definitely. But at the same time, like, well, that's one of the aspects that people tend to overlook because it's abstract. It's not very physical. It's not really very physical in terms, it doesn't show itself, but you can feel it before the game. You will try to search your opponent and you try to look at who they are. You get to see their rating, their title, and their achievements, and it just like gets you, it either motivates you to beat that person, or it
Mm.
intimidates you. So you have to choose which one how it would impact you. For me, example, in my third season, in season 81, I volunteered to handle the first board of Ateneo. And normally the first board are where all the best players of the schools
Yeah.
are. I volunteered for that spot. I mean, it's really a difficult task because the people I play against were what? Olympic players, people of the
Mm.
national team, and all that stuff, right? And rather than get intimidated, my only thought was like, this guy is strong. So why should I feel scared? I should feel happy if I get to beat this guy. So it's kind of
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Aside from that, within quarantine, I saw, you have like this, you have a YouTube channel, if I'm not mistaken,
Mm.
right? I
Yes.
saw that you had a video where you played virtually against, what is it? A virtual Beth Harmon.
Yes. Yes.
Is that right? Yeah. So how
Mm.
does that work? I mean, obviously it's not actually
Yes.
her, but how does, like, so it's like her parang her style of play. How does that work? when you're playing against her,
Okay. So chess.com is actually one of the major chess servers online where you can play, and a lot of the best chess players in the world are also playing on that server. So chess.com, it's called chess.com, and they created this virtual bot, the Beth Harmon bot, where they programmed a computer to basically play like her.
Okay.
So there are different strengths, like her at age 8, at age 9, 10,
Okay.
11, and then 15. I forgot the ages, but like
Yeah.
the rating goes from all the way from 800 to
Wow.
2700. Yeah. So you get to choose the difficulty of level you want to play.
Okay, that's interesting. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I usually like to start off the interviews by, talking about the game itself, the sport itself. Especially with complicated sports. I had my guest for baseball, like you mentioned, like we were
Yes.
talking about. So Javi had to explain the
Mhm.
sport because, parang, I mean, I've watched the game, but it's kind of hard to understand. I don't think that's the case with chess. As long as you start off talaga with learning the rules, because I mean it's something that you could kind of pick up, at least the basics from a young age, because I learned it when I was pretty young. So
Mhm.
I my initial assessment was that I wasn't so much of a beginner, but I
Mhm.
kind of knew a little more advanced stuff, like some stuff that most beginners wouldn't. So like obviously you can castle the king, for example. You can move the pawn an extra space for the first move.
Mhm.
Um, but there was one post that I stumbled upon on Facebook, I think a few weeks or a few months ago, that if you move the pawn the extra space for your first move, they can
Mhm.
move how do you explain it? Like they can move their pawn to the skipped spot. Is that
Yes. Yes.
accurate?
Yes.
And
It's called and
it'll eat the pawn.
yes. 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 That's actually
Okay.
true. It's called en passant.
Okay. Well,
In
but
French,
then
it's a
so you
French word.
technically don't skip bale.
Actually, the word en passant is a French word, and it comes from, if you translate it to English, it means passing. So what does it mean
Okay.
by passing? Like you don't actually hit the actual square where the pawn is, but assuming, like, because pawns can move two squares in the first try, right? It's not a normal way a pawn moves. So in the chess rules, if a pawn moves two squares, you can still capture it as if it had moved one square. If you know what I mean?
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
what.
Okay.
Mhm.
That's interesting. That's I'll take note of that the next time I play my little brother. Okay. One more thing that I wanted to clarify was obviously when you're playing casually, it's just a normal game, but then competitively there's a timer, right?
Yes.
How much time are you given? And does that mean like if your time goes down, you really have to rush towards the end?
Okay, so there are actually four. There are four types of chess variants in terms of time. The one that we play in UAAP, which one I'll start first, is the classical chess. So that one is really long game. We start at 1 p.m. and we end at around 5. So that's a 4 hours for one single game. And each player gets 1.5 hours plus 30 seconds increment. Increment is like additional time. So
Okay.
example, you make a move, you get additional 30 seconds for each move you make. So the time can go up and up. So that's
Okay.
1 hour and 30 plus 30. And then after classical, we have the second variant. It's called rapid, which most tournaments in the Philippines are rapid. Actually, they normally range from 30 minutes, 25 minutes, instead of 1.5 hours. So it's much shorter. It's not as fast as Blitz. So the next one is Blitz, which is normally 5 minutes, 3 minutes. Those are really really fast games, right? So
Yeah.
um, not doesn't mean the game has to finish in 3 minutes. You have 3 minutes to you have to conserve 3 minutes within your specific game. So your game, let's say you're playing a game, you have 3 minutes to play the entire game for yourself, and your opponent has his or her own 3 minutes or 5 minutes. Mhm. And the last one, which is only special to online chess, which is it's called bullet chess, which
Okay.
is I think physically impossible in physical chess, but it's possible, yeah. But it's not recognized professionally because it's just too fast. That's like 1 minute or 2 minute chess. Like you just like people pieces will be flying here and there, because like it's really fast. Like if your time runs out, you lose the game regardless of the
Yeah.
position, unless let's
Oh,
say the position is surely drawn, like there are two kings, then that's even if your time runs out, then it's still a draw. But
Yeah.
nonetheless, the worst possible outcome will happen to you if your time runs out. So
So what's the I don't know what the FIFA World Cup equivalent of chess would be, but what kind of timer do they use?
oh, okay. So the main brand for the chess sets are DGT. I don't know what it stands for. I just know it's DGT. And the like for basketball we have FIBA as
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
governing body of basket, right? So in chess we have FIDE, FIDE. That's the
Okay.
governing body of chess internationally. It stands for, actually it's French, Fédération de, I don't know the pronounce, International de, I don't know how to speak French, of course, but
Yeah.
it just stands for International Chess Federation in English. So
Okay.
it's FIDE, yes, FIDE.
No, yeah. So what time like you mentioned the four classes of time for
Mm-hmm.
what do you call that?
Ah, oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, I misunderstood your question. Okay, so for FIDE, normally the tournaments are in Blitz, Rapid, or
Okay.
Classical. Yes,
Okay. It's really three different ones, by the.
there are usually events for Blitz, there are events for
Okay.
Rapid, there are events for Class. So you have three different ratings for that. Okay, it's not like one
Mm.
rating for all. Because of course you may
Okay.
use, some people are strong in Blitz because they play really fast and their mind processes things really fast, right?
Yeah.
But there are players who take their time to think but are very solid players, so they're good at classical. But in terms of Blitz, they may be a bit slow. So it differs. Their rating really differs um from time control. Yes.
Okay. Okay. So aside from that, what something I also never really fully understood was, how the rankings in chess work.
Mm,
You
mm,
mentioned that you are an AGM or an Arena
mm,
Grandmaster,
mm.
if I'm not mistaken. So could you give us like a quick explanation of how these ranks and how the system itself works?
All right. So in because FIDE or that federation uses the ELO system, which is a number that is assigned to your strength. So for
Okay.
example, your because like usually normally chess players will range among 800. For beginners, usually your rating will be around 800, and it goes all the way to 2,900 or 2,800 to that level. So that's the range of all chess players in the world. 2,900 is like world champion already.
Mm.
800 is like starting out, the beginner stage, right? And the more you win games, the more your rating goes up. So imagine when I was mentioning earlier, tying back to the answer I made a while ago about the caste system. Imagine
Mm.
if let's say you're 15 or 1600, and then you see your opponent is like 23 or 24. Wouldn't you feel sort of like intimidated, like, whoa, I'm playing this guy that's 800 points higher than me? Like that's a big
Yeah.
difference, right? So people can physically see the difference in front of you. Unlike basketball, you can have a lucky shot. Maybe you're playing against Steph Curry, you can have a lucky shot, but
Yeah.
like in chess, you can really see the person's strength right in front of him in number form, right? So
Mm.
normally the FIDE titles is achieved by achieving a certain rating. So for Grandmaster, you need to achieve a rating of 2,500. For International Master, you need 2,400. And then FIDE Master, you need 2,300. Candidate Master, you need 2,200, and so on and so forth. Now, this Arena Grandmaster title is actually a title earned online. Since um, as I mentioned earlier, chess is different over the board and online, right? So
Mm.
FIDE created separate titles for online chess.
Okay.
So they have the Arena Grandmaster, Arena International Master, Arena FIDE Master, and then Arena Candidate Master. So they're online counterparts. I played in their server online, and yeah, that's how I got the title.
So you garner points bale through the tournaments, right?
Playing tournaments
Or
and playing against other people. Like just you get matched up against someone stronger, and if you win, example, then your rating goes up. If you lose
yeah.
against someone, it goes down. So it's just like that.
Okay. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. So aside from okay, for example, in other sports, I guess you can see um you can kind of scout someone like straight up. Like if I went up against Steph, okay, not Steph Curry, but like if I went up against a guy that was like 7 foot, obviously
Mm.
I'd expect him to I don't know, dominate inside the post.
Yes. Yes.
So like even if I don't know anything about him before that, you can kind of see the physical disparity. You can kind of see the advantage that he would have.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, and like I mentioned earlier, I was a table tennis player also. There are different styles of table tennis players. There's some that are defensive, there's some that are more offensive. Is there like that kind of equivalent when we talk about chess? Like um obviously you already mentioned that you can see their ranking. So that's a good gauge. But like let's say I don't know, there are some movies where some people just meet up in the park to play chess. So
Yes.
like let's say you had like a pickup chess game, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Could you kind of gauge their skill level or their style of play just from their first move or just from their first few moves? Like would you know like okay, this is what this guy is planning to do, or like this is how this guy plays?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I get your question that sometimes you meet people and you're not sure how strong they are, right? And it happens a lot of times. Just see someone and you play with them. But to answer your question on that, yes, actually, the first few moves, sometimes you can tell how good a person is. Maybe one, their confidence before they play
Yeah.
the game. So that tells a lot about you. If you exude confidence when you play your first few moves, it shows that you know what you're doing, right? Because
Okay.
imagine if you play against a beginner, then the beginner starts to hold. Let's say he has a board in front of you. Well, I can't show a board right now, but imagine if he touches the queen and say, "Oh, I don't want to move this," and then maybe if you're kind of thinking, then you'll be like, oh, this person probably doesn't know what he or she is doing.
Yeah.
But if you see a person really concentrating and really putting in the effort to think and just immersing him, like you can tell a person's a chess player if the way he acts in front of the board, like because they have a certain body language that they exude,
Okay.
something like that. But more than that, I think that chess players overall, like they have their own play style, so they choose openings. Like
Yeah.
sometimes they play the Spanish game, or they play the London game, Italian game. There are different, or Evans Gambit or King's Gambit, all these things, right? So they all have different personalities, and they really show what kind of player are you. For example, si Beth, Sicilian player siya. If
Mhm.
you watch the series she loves Sicilian, and Mr. Scheibel taught her the Sicilian. And if you're
Yeah.
aware of the Sicilian defense, then you can somewhat feel what kind of player Beth is, right? What kind of style she wants. Does she want a more passive game? Or not really passive, sorry, that's a wrong word. Maybe a more defensive game, because passive is negative. So maybe more defensive, or maybe more offensive, or maybe she wants a tactical game, a positional game. So that kind of thing. Yes.
Okay. Is there a um for, would would a player generally stick to one style? Like for example, if you went up like because you were able to scout the players before you play them, especially in
Mhm.
UAAP, for example.
Yes.
Do you I don't know, do they or do you change styles based on who you're against? Or is it like playing to your strength? Like, okay, this is my strategy and then I'll adjust in game.
Mhm. That's a very good question, actually. So I actually, it's very relevant because I read a book also on Mark Dvoretsky. He's a Russian, one of the famous Russian chess coaches. So it's my favorite, one of my idols. Si Mark, he's way past our time. He's back. He goes way back. But Mark Dvoretsky said it perfectly in his book. I won't this the book title is Secrets of Chess Training. So right, okay. So for what Mark Dvoretsky said, normally because chess players have their strengths and their deficiencies. Everyone does. That's what separates humans from computers. But more away from that. Normally, because like for example, if you're meeting someone, do you change who you are when you meet someone? Like I'll maybe
Uh,
answer back the question to you. Like let's say you're meeting, let's say, your friend, and one day suddenly you decide to change who you are in front of your friend. That doesn't seem
yeah,
so natural, right? And it will
yeah,
show it will show on the board that I'm not used to
that's right.
this, right? So
Yeah,
what Mark Dvoretsky says in his book is when you're fighting someone and you know their strengths and their deficiencies, maybe you can learn the pattern that they're uncomfortable with. That's possible. But at the
yeah,
same time also, you should not stray away too much from your own personality. Like coaches will tell you, oh, this is the best move. Oh, this is the best opening. This is the best play style. We have had those instances where we were
mhm,
recommended as players to try this style. right? And after we've tried it several times, it never really suited us. So why would we continue pushing for it if we know we're comfortable with the things that we are used to? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get. Okay. Kasi parang you could like try to play to their disadvantage, but would it really be to your advantage? Kind of like that, right?
Because you can suffer from it too, from shifting away
Yeah,
from yes.
because you wouldn't be as comfortable. Okay.
Yes.
Get. Okay. All right. So, uh, about how many was that? Two episodes I think ago, I had dancers
Yes.
on the podcast. So, what I asked, the main question I had there was because it wasn't really a big debate, but there's like a conflict of like, is it a dance? Is it a dance? Is it a sport or is it an art? Now chess is obviously it's recognized by the International Olympic Committee. I think there was like already a pitch for it to be in the Olympics, and there's another pitch for the next Olympics already. Um, and of course, locally it's already in the UAAP. So I don't think it's a debate on whether or not it's a sport. But I'm sure you would also admit that some people are surprised when they find out that chess is considered a sport. Some people. I guess so. I wanted to ask you, why do you think chess is a sport?
Oh, okay. That's a very good question, too. Very good question. Um, Back in 2015, I met with the first Asian Grandmaster is actually Filipino. I don't know if you know him, Grandmaster Eugene Torre.
Yeah,
So he's one of the legends of the Philippines, first Asian Grandmaster. And he asked me the same question too. He asked me, is chess a sport? And I didn't know what to answer then because I was younger. So he answered the question. He answered the question for me. Now I don't exactly remember what he said anymore because it was over 5 years ago. But what I can tell you about the game of chess is it's transitioned. It's transitioned to become a lot of things. From the time it began all the way to today. Right now, you see people playing it as an esport already. Like
yeah,
you see it on Twitch, you see it on YouTube, you see it everywhere, right? But chess is a sport, ultimately a sport, is I think because there's always this spirit of competition. That's what makes
okay,
a sport, right? Basketball, we have two teams playing against each other, and
yeah,
people are entertained by watching it, which makes it a sport. Same thing as chess. There are two people playing, and people watch. People get entertained by it. So that just goes to show it's a sport. Now, normally people will say, but it's not a sport because there's no physical exertion.
mm,
It's like they
yeah,
say sports need to have a little bit of physical element to it, right? And people say, oh, chess is all mental. There's no physical
mm,
aspect of it, right? But actually, that's not true. Um, our coaches would always tell us, especially in Ateneo, that your body and your mind is one. When you play chess, you need to be healthy physically. You need to have good diet, still similar to all other athletes who train, especially basketball athletes and football athletes. They have their own diet, right? Similar to
yeah,
chess players, like I have my own diet too. I maintain a diet, so I make sure when I play, I'm in the best condition possible. Or because imagine if you're sleepy or you came from work or you came from school and you're really tired, would you
mm,
want to play? I don't think so, right?
yeah, true, true.
It goes to show like chess is not only mental, it's also physical. So we have physical training as well from time to time.
Okay,
Mm.
yeah, okay. No, I actually wanted to get into your training, but we'll get into that a little bit later.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
I wanted to continue with now with your how you got into chess. What was, I don't know, maybe not the first time, but how did you get into playing the sport?
Okay, so in Xavier, normally, well, it starts actually grade two. We have this guidance counselor, Mr. Abrahina. So if he listens to this podcast, I want to let him know that he was one of the people who pushed me to play. He was our guidance counselor in grade two, and in his office, because in his office was air conditioned, so a lot of us really love to go there. And he had toys there,
Yeah.
like he had blocks there. He had jackstones and all that stuff in his office, and people like to swarm there during break time to play and just hang out there.
Mm,
One thing he had there was a chess set, And people would swarm that chess set all the time, and they'd start playing, like they'll start moving and all that. And people had so much fun. Like there would be around 30 people or 40 people in his office at one time. To the point, even outside, it was crowded already. So I was like, "What's this sport? I was like, what are you guys playing? What's this game?" And then one of the people there said, "Oh, it's chess." And I was like, "What's chess?" So that's kind of like what got me. I started in grade 2. That's what got
Okay.
me kind of hooked to the game. I asked my dad to teach me, and from there, like he kept on beating me over and over again. I couldn't take that fact, so like I kept on like learning myself, trying to find ways to beat him. And as the time went by grade 5, I was invited to play in the varsity as a role, like a bench player perhaps. Like in
Yeah,
case
yeah.
someone was absent, I would sub in. So in grade
Okay.
5, I started playing sort of competitively already, and from there it just soared all the way from there. Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, you were mentioning that you started out in Xavier. I was a basketball player before, grade school pa lang. So, I know I've played against Xavier, and they have an amazing basketball program.
Mhm.
And I'm sure, not even just Xavier, but just in general, being the Philippines, basketball is obviously a huge, probably the biggest
Yes.
sport. So and me and my batchmates, I could see it from recess and lunch palang that everyone, almost everyone, if not everyone, gravitated towards the sport. Everyone had played at least once, or had tried out the sport, or had tried to succeed in the sport. Um, I guess I wanted to ask, parang, what was it about chess that you know made, I don't know if you gravitated towards basketball also, but why what made you stick to chess instead?
Mhm. Actually, I played a lot of basketball in high school too. My favorite, like I remember the days when I'd play in the gym wearing leather shoes and yung khaki pants
Yeah,
namin with like a sando. Yeah. So that was how we used to play after school, after dismissal or during lunch break. I'm actually the one who always brings the ball. So
Okay.
during high school, I was like so into basketball. So I played with my friends. But why did I choose chess in the end? I think it's just because I think I'm better at it. Like
Okay.
yeah, yeah. So like basketball, there's too many people that are good at it already. Like we
That's
have a
true.
big community there. But chess, there seems to be more in store for me. Like I think I
Yeah,
can I can really achieve more in chess rather than basketball. I play it with my friends, yeah, but
for sure, for sure.
yeah, for sure, yeah. But like for in terms of chess, I really feel there's more fulfillment. There's
Mm,
more to learn. There's more room for me to grow in the sport
yeah,
than
and there's more
basketball or other
opportunity
sports.
for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Um, Now, there are a lot of movies about kid geniuses. Or like sometimes they would think they're special children, and then they realize that they're actually. I think I know there was this one movie where I saw they thought there was a special child who was playing like with salt shakers in a restaurant. Yun pala,
Mm-hmm.
it was some sort of it was some chess in his head or something like that. So usually nga, yung mga kid genius movies, it's either they're super good at math, or they secretly know how to play chess. Um, I don't know if this is a silly question, but how likely is it that if you're good at chess, you're extremely smart?
Okay, this is an interesting question, and I'd like to answer this by saying that the bottom line for me is whatever you practice at, that's what you get good in. You practice in chess, you
Okay.
get good at chess. You excel, you practice, let's say, example, if you're preparing for a math test, you start studying calc, you prepare well for the test, you'll do well. You studying law, as long as you keep on digesting more cases and studying law, continuing to do what you do, then the more you get good at it. So I feel like IQ and chess, like I think there's somewhat of a correlation, but it's not very clear because I feel that most of the time, whatever you practice in, that's what you just really get good at. Like I don't think let's say for example, doesn't mean you're a good physicist, you're a good mathematician. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It's different. Or if
Yeah.
it doesn't mean you're a good English speaker or you're good at analyzing things, you're a good accountant. It's different
Hmm.
things. Or lawyer, for example. Like actually, a chess player and the profession of law is actually very intertwined to each other. And in my chess team, we have one, two, we have three people who are in law school. So
Okay.
why do I think that way? Because studying law and chess actually has a lot of similarities. Because if for you guys, you digest a lot of cases, right? And you read a lot, For the same thing we go for chess. Imagine how many games there are. There are over 100 or 100 million, or I don't know how many games there are. I have a
Mhm.
database on my computer with over 20 million games, classical games from Russians, Americans, Indians, and all these other great countries who play chess and the great icons. And I study them. Similar to
Mhm.
how you digest cases, I study games,
Yeah.
previous games, and I try to mimic, not really mimic entirely, but try to adapt their style and their train of thought. Similar
Mhm.
to studying for law. So, yun lang. So I think
Yeah.
if I studied law, I don't know how I would be. But like for you, you're a lawyer. If you practice law, I think you'll get good at law. But doesn't necessarily mean you can do the same for chess. But
Yeah.
maybe perhaps if
Okay.
you study chess, you might have a better advantage at studying chess because
Mm.
you have the mindset already. But doesn't necessarily mean you're good at it too. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
different.
Okay.
Yes.
I get. Okay. In line with that, I wanted to ask then, how do you guys train? Because for example, we look at basketball players. We look at okay, let's use basketball players. There's a lot of different aspects. There's conditioning. Because it's a team sport, they have to practice the plays, and then they have to practice their skills individually. But what's the training regimen like when you're a chess player, or with you guys in Ateneo?
Hmm. Okay, so our program composes of studying three different aspects of chess. We have the tactical aspect, so we do puzzles for that. We solve, like, we have boards with positions, and then we would write down a solution. For example, in this position, it's white to play or black to play and win. Find the best move for white and black, and then we would submit our answers to coach, and he would check them. So that's how we train for tactics, finding out combinations like sacrifices, all these things. Second, we have the positional understanding. So we try to improve our positional understanding by looking at classical games, reading books, studying the masters and all these things. So we try to see, why did this move, how did this knight move contribute to him winning the game overall, and how important is this knight move in terms of the entire game, something like that, those kind of things. So
Mhm.
we analyze games, and by doing that we actually read books. So we have the books that we read. And third is actually studying of one's own games, because of course, like in basketball, you need to watch game film to see what you
Yeah.
did, what you did and what you didn't do in the game, right? Similar thing in chess, but what's better about chess is you have the paper with you. You have the exact moves that you played, and you can easily review it on the spot. So what
Mhm.
we do, we replay the games and check. Oh, at move 9, I caused some kind of mistake that gave up this certain square to my opponent, and it caused me to lose, or it caused me to give up my advantage, that kind of thing. Or at the same time, our opponent. So let's say your opponent creates a mistake too, and then you're like, oh, my opponent made this mistake here in this, let's say, move 10. He
Yeah.
he he replied with my bad move with another bad move. So we both played bad moves in this scenario, and it looked like it was completely fine to both of us, right? So those kind of
Yeah.
things, the minute stuff. Yeah, so that's how
Okay.
we train. But there's actually one part of training where I don't really mention to a lot of people, but we play basketball a lot. The chess team.
Okay.
We reserve our Saturdays sometimes, because Beg is open on Saturday, and the
Okay.
Cov
Yeah.
courts. Yeah, so we reserve it for scrimmages. Yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
so we
Yeah.
play a lot. We play a lot.
I used to be blockmates with Jill.
Jill
So I
Feliciano.
would see, yeah, so I
Mm.
would see her posts. Don't they win though? I
It's
heard
actually,
the
well,
women's team.
they won the first game, but after that, well, we had to return the favor, right? But
For sure.
actually, we also played UST, the UST chess team. They came over to
Oh, that's
Ateneo to play
cool.
basketball with us. So it's our recreational thing, yeah, as a
Yeah,
team.
yeah. No, that's good also because like I mean at least that like you mentioned, you need the physical aspect also. So at least
Yes.
there's some sort of conditioning also. Okay, that's
Mm-hmm.
cool. Okay. Now I going back to it. Every time when people talk about chess, they always talk about being how many like two moves or three moves ahead, right? How
Yes.
but I don't know. I mean, that's obviously like a basic person thinking. So how do actual competitive chess players? How many moves ahead are you thinking? And how does that work considering that the person across the board is thinking like just as many moves ahead?
Mm, great. Also, another nice question. I want to ask you for me, maybe just like for your opinion first. How many moves do you think?
Well, when I'm playing, I think like two moves ahead.
Or like, how do
So
you,
like,
what yeah, okay, go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, I mean, like when I play, obviously it's basic, so I'm thinking like two, maybe three moves ahead. Like you try to set someone up, but then I would assume, for an athlete, for a competitive chess player to be at least five. I don't know.
Okay, actually, that's very accurate. Because I have some friends who asked me before, Gavin, do you see the game from start to end? That kind of question.
Yeah.
Honestly, yeah, it's impossible. So you're actually right. No, actually, I attended a master class by Grandmaster Daniil Dubov. He's a Russian Grandmaster, 38 in the entire world. He had a master class, so I attended it. And his lecture, he lectured to us about his games, how to attack logically. That was the topic of the master class. And he talked about his games and how he came up with those brilliant attacks, how he came up with those sacrifices, and like how did he see the combination from start to end, right?
Mm.
Although we have puzzles there, so what we do for the puzzles is we set a position down on the board, on the table. No one is allowed to move the pieces. You can only visualize them in your head, so that
Yeah.
practices your mind as well. And you have to like, sometimes we had one problem where it took us a couple of hours to solve. It's a 13 move two knights checkmate. So that was
Mm.
really hard, difficult. Took us a couple of hours to finish it. And we had some help also, because like it was really, really difficult. But like,
Yeah.
um in terms of that, I think chess players don't really think how many moves ahead. There's no exact number. But
Okay.
I believe that chess players think in terms of logic, if you know what I mean. Like they think, does this move turn out to be logically acceptable or
Mm.
logically, right to me? Because sometimes a move can seem logical, but that's why you need to couple it with calculation, because a move can seem
Yeah.
logical, but when you play it out in your head, the scenario, it's not actually logical. So sometimes you have to pick out a move and you play it based on intuition. So what we do is we recognize a lot of patterns and we say, this is actually played pala by example. Um, let's say you study this game by, let's say, Magnus Carlsen. He's actually the world champion right now. So let's say you
Yeah.
analyze one of his games and you see he played this move here on this certain position. And let's say a similar position kind of arises in your own game. So your pattern, your memory will tell you, oh, this was played by the world champion. I think it's a good move. And it seems logical based on my own analysis. So I'll play it and I'll just think about what will happen afterwards. So
Mm.
it depends really. Sometimes it's just two moves, three moves. Sometimes if you're gonna sacrifice for a checkmate, 7, 8 moves. So really depends.
Okay. Yeah.
Mm.
Okay. No, like in any sport, I'm sure there's kind of like a standard way everyone's taught how to play. Like for example, in basketball, everyone has a proper shooting form,
Yes.
um, teaches you how to dribble, box out, all of that stuff. Um, but you were talking about how obviously there are different styles, I guess, different approaches to, I guess, use a start to the game. But in like let's say basketball, there's there are some players who are successful even in an unorthodox manner. Like for example, you could have a funny shot, but it goes in. Obviously, I mean you're gonna make
Yeah, I
it, but
know.
then as long as it keeps going
Mm,
in, right?
yeah, I know those
So
people.
so these kinds of like funny shots could kind of lead you to kind of downplay or not take them seriously, or not even guard them.
Mm.
So I wanted to know if there is a equivalent of that in chess. Like, are you playing and then you say, "Well, that was a stupid move," and then it kind of like, and then yun pala, it was a really good move. You know what I mean?
Kind of.
I don't know if
Sorry if
there's
I
something like that.
maybe I'll try. I'm not sure if I understood your question correctly, but I'll try to answer it. Um, I think I know what you mean. So whenever we train as a beginner, so you're saying as a beginner, right? Whenever we
Mm.
train, we undergo the same standard training. Like for example, for you guys, it was the cones and then the dribbling. Because I
Yeah.
took also basketball camp in the past, so
Mm-mm.
I know the trainings there. And similar in chess, we have the same program also. We learn the three stages of the game. We learn basic tactics. We learn special moves. We learn combinations, basic combinations, and then from there, I think you mentioned about those crazy forms where people shoot to the side like that.
Yeah.
Um, I think those develop over time as you continue to train on the standard path. Like we all develop our own personality when we play chess or when you play
Yeah.
basketball. And I think that also applies to it applies to chess as well. That when you begin your own training and you learn all these techniques like the golden rules of chess, for example, or basic tactics, basic positional analysis, or these types of things. You develop your own personality as you go on. You
Mm-mm.
develop your own style, and this is an unconscious process. Okay, like for basketball, you don't think about your jump shot. You do
Yeah.
what's most natural to you. Similar to chess, it just develops by itself as
Okay.
you go on, and that's what a chess coach's job is to do, is to push your player to find out what kind of player he is,
Mm-mm.
and
Okay.
trying to strengthen that and minimize the weaknesses as well of that play style.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Okay. Now I mentioned earlier also that I played table tennis. I played 1 year in college
Yes.
and almost my whole high school. So I think if I'm not mistaken, our training centers are actually right beside
Yes.
each other in Duigo.
Mhm.
Um okay, so I wanted to compare it now with table tennis. Obviously we have doubles, but in general it's a very individual sport. But UAAP I've noticed has a tendency to make every sport very team oriented.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I felt that I could really feel that in table tennis because it transformed from being you're supposed to feel like you're on your own, but then our benches would go crazy when we would be playing,
Yes.
and so you could really feel the team aspect aside from the fact that obviously we need three wins as a team to win that match, for example.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I wanted to know in chess, at least in even just in the UAAP level, is there that kind of dynamic with you and with your teammates na parang it's definitely an individual sport. You guys don't even have like doubles, right?
Mhm.
So parang is there that sense of like, being a team, being a sense of teamwork, I guess, that comes into play when you're in UAP chess?
Okay. To answer your question, yeah, actually, chess is a very individual sport, but in my experience as captain and as a member of the team for 4 years, I'd like to disagree with the fact that chess is so individualistic. During
Okay.
my first 3 years, I believed in that chess was so individual, because that was what I was so accustomed to, like knowing the fact that, oh, my game is individual, my teammates can't help me, so I'm all alone. I'm basically relying on myself to win. But I think when I reached my fourth year, and I think we were having a hard time in season 82, because a lot of us, well, I mean, during that time we didn't have a deep bench. So
Okay.
imagine, since in chess kasi we have 6 players in the team, 6 players are fielded for UAAP, and during the season, 4 get to play at a time.
Mm-mm.
The thing with Ateneo kasi, is for our team, we have the exact same 4 players play for all the games. So, kumbaga, kung walang absent, lalaro lahat ng... So, I played all
Yeah.
14 games during the season. And around round 8, round 9, the fatigue came in. And I really felt midterms was coming up. A lot of my ACADS were coming. Our games are Saturday and Sunday. So, imagine,
Yeah.
it ate up my weekend already. And then, I still have to play chess for the school. But of course, I'm not complaining or anything. It's actually a great experience. But I just like to say na chess's team is really a team effort. Because I think you're going through the same experiences with your teammates. Eh. The same stress, the same
Mm-mm.
problems, the same happiness, the same all experiences
Yeah.
together. And one thing I like to notice, I've noticed also, because you can finish your game early. You're 4 players playing at a time, and to beat another school you need 2.5. So at least you need at least 2.5 to win. It's 1 point for a win, zero for a loss, half point for a draw. But you need 2.5. So if I see one of my teammates, for example, let's say my katabi, he's losing already, and then he shook the hand of his opponent and he resigned. Wouldn't you feel kind of demotivated knowing that
Yeah.
your teammate just lost and you cannot talk to him, so you need to wait for your game to finish before you can go there and console? You know what I'm talking about, right? It
Yeah.
takes a toll on the team. Like imagine, let's say for me as a captain, imagine if I lost so early. Let's say in the first 30 minutes, I'd lose my game immediately. How would my other teammates feel? Oh, our captain just died. Like, you know what I mean? Like, our captain just lost so fast. Like, what does that make of me? You know, that kind
Yeah.
of like feeling. And I think that's overlooked a lot of times, right? That people think, oh, chess is individualistic because you're playing by yourself. But the thing is, you're all emotionally attached to each other. You and your
Mhm.
teammates, and that's
Yeah.
the thing that makes it a team sport. But in terms of, let's say, national competitions, but it's usually kasi yung mga tournaments locally is like tatlohan, dalawahan, apatan. If you don't have any emotional attachment to your teammates, I guess that's when it becomes more individual in a sense, you know.
Mhm. Yeah.
Mm.
Okay. Okay. I wanted to share a little because I had a friend who made cuento. He was in Babel. I forgot if this was high school now or college,
Mm-hmm.
but he was in Babel, and I know he went to a chess event of Ateneo to cheer.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, but what happened was, I don't know if he was kicked out, but for sure he mentioned that he was cheering. I okay, I'm not super accurate with the facts, but I know it was either every Atenean move or every Atenean when the Ateneo player eats a piece of the opponent. I really hope it was the eating, because that's at least parang may nagawa as opposed to like just a normal move.
Yes.
But so he went there to cheer, and I think he might have gotten kicked out. So I wanted to know, like, what's the vibe in a tournament, you know what I
Ah.
mean? Because like even in table tennis, like, you're supposed to be quiet during play or during the serve. But once someone scores, hiyawan lahat eh. How
Mm.
is it really like quiet the whole time in a chess competition?
Yes. Okay. So if you want to know how it feels like to be in UAAP chess, this is only what a chess player can feel. You know, even our managers say the same thing, because our venue is in UST and we're all in one giant room.
Mm,
Once you go in the room, the playing area, it's complete silence. Like, as in, the room environment is super serious. There's like no emotions. Everyone is just quiet. Everyone is just ready to play their game, and you really feel that's another thing I want to say about online and physical chess. At home, if you're playing online chess, you can play music beside you. You
mm,
can listen to
yeah,
people maybe on your left or your right talking, right? So maybe if you're with your family, you can hear them talking outside or talking somewhere, or just watching YouTube or listening to videos,
yeah,
right? But if you're playing in a chess tournament, you really feel the environment around you, the serene, quiet, like peaceful environment, and everything just falls in place, like you get yourself composed too. Like, actually, um how would I say this? Actually, Babel asked me before, when I was second year, Gavin, do we have to go to your games? Like, I was like, don't come anymore, because like, although I'd love it if you support the team, right? But
yeah, yeah.
at the end of the day, chess is all about maintaining the silence. Actually, Gaidon had several issues also. Like, I had to ask for press passes for them because they were not even allowed to go in the venue without an
Mm,
ID. They were that controlled with who can go in, who can go out,
yeah,
and who can stay inside. Like, even coaches are not allowed to stay in very long because the players
mm,
need their consent need their full concentration on the board. Because if you try to distract the player, that can be considered kind of like a foul, in basketball.
yeah, yeah.
So that's a technical also. So, if Babel was there, it might even just harm the team rather than do good. So that's why I'd say maybe Babel can go, but if they'd like to go, they can stay outside. But that doesn't seem so good also, right? Doesn't
Yeah.
look so nice. Yeah. So chess tournament environment is really one of a kind. It's really quiet.
Mm.
Imagine taking the asset, but more quiet and more serious than that. Kind of like on that level. Yeah. That's the
Yeah.
environment. Yeah, kind of
Okay.
like taking the
Well,
asset.
so how okay, I want to compare it with the other sports na there's like you kind of draw energy from the crowd in other sports. And you kind of like it hypes you up, it gets you aggressive. Um so and that's the mindset that you go into with other sports. What's your mindset when you go into a chess competition? Like how I imagine it because it's kind of like how like if we look at these other sports, it's like how the coaches are. Yung
Mhm.
tipong everyone's like, bumping chess and everything, but the coach is
Yeah.
like kind of straight faced the whole time thinking of yun nga, the next move. So I mean, is that kind of like what your mindset is like when you go into a competition?
Going in the competition, yeah. We have the same kind of mindset. Like actually what we do before our routine before the a game is we go outside because there's a waiting area and there's the playing area. So while we're in the waiting area and it's almost 1 p.m., we'd go outside and we'd gather in a circle and we'd pray. We'd pray, and then after that, coach will have some words for us, like saying, "Oh, we're playing against FEU. Good luck, guys. Don't stress out too much." You know, the last minute reminders, all that, and then
Yeah.
we'd shout OBF after that. But in terms of like the hyping up, that's what I mentioned earlier about being a team sport. No one can hype you except your teammates. Like
Yeah.
there's a lot of non-verbal comms when you play chess. Like because you after your game while you're playing, you can stand up and walk around. Example, it's not
Okay.
your turn. It's not if it's not your turn to play, you can stand up and walk around the room and watch other people play. So what I'd
Yeah.
normally do, example, if it's not my turn, I'd stand up and watch my teammates because I want to
Yeah.
make sure that they get support also from me. That I say, oh, I'm watching you, so I'm here for you, something like that. And if I see
Yeah.
they're winning, that also hypes me up. Like, oh, this guy's winning. Okay, I'm gonna push for a win too. Like it hypes
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
up. So that's the team aspect. Because in basketball, who hypes up the game? It's the crowd. But there's no
Yeah.
crowd. So who has to hype you up? It's your teammates.
Mm-mm.
Your coach will be
Okay.
there from time to time to watch you, and then sometimes I'd see my coach smile like that. That smile, and then like they'll say like they'll nod a little bit, and I go like, okay, this is good, you know. So
Yeah.
those little things, I think those are what hypes up the game more than a crowd or an external force.
Gets it. Okay. Now I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on over your years of playing chess. Would you say that the sport has kind of grown in the country in the Philippines? Like do you see more young people playing now?
Mhm. Oh, okay. So yes, actually, chess is continually growing in the Philippines. I'm not sure if you followed, but we had a fundraiser event recently, the Ateneo alumni against the LaSalle
Yeah,
alumni.
yeah.
We played against them. The game ended in a complete tie, 72 all. So that was so intense. But what that fundraiser was for actually was for the support of the NCFP children. So NCFP stands for National Chess Federation of the Philippines,
Mm.
and they have a scholar program where they aid the scholars in studying chess, hoping one day that they become one of the best players in the Philippines. But I believe that chess is very much alive in the Philippines, and the community is very much there. Like there are different chess clubs all over the country. Maybe you're just not aware of it. But we have
Yeah.
a lot of chess clubs around the country. And also internationally, we have lots of players who are also starting their own chess clubs with holding the Filipino flag. For example, in Korea, they have the E9 Chess Club, which is all Filipinos actually who are in Korea working. So they have their own chess club there. So that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, there. Mm.
Yeah. What do you okay. Do you think because we talk about how the Philippines is such a basketball centric country, but at the same time how we're a short heighted
Mm-hmm.
population.
Yes.
Um, do you think that the Philippines has a bright future in the international stage when it comes to chess?
Actually, we already are. You just
Okay,
not me. That's the thing about Philippine chess. Like I might go on a bit of a rant here, but
go lang.
we actually are succeeding very much in chess in the Philippines. I don't know if you know Wesley Saw. Do you know who
Yeah,
Wesley Saw
yeah,
is? Okay, he's actually a homegrown Filipino raised in Cavite, And there was a now he's in the US playing for the US already.
Yeah.
But when he was here in the Philippines, like, oh my gosh, like he finished for a time he was second best in the entire world, and the Philippines let him go. Like
Yeah.
it was the biggest frustration of the chess community, that why did you let our best chess player leave for another country? You know,
Mhm.
we developed a chess player that can during a time was second best in the entire world, and currently world champion in chess 960.
Yeah.
So
I
imagine
like I
that,
still
like
see him on the news.
he's still in
I
the
still
news,
see him on
and
the news how good he is.
like that like how could you let him go, that kind of thing, right? And we also have, like, for example, the Asians Cup recently. The Philippines got third place in the women's division. And then in the
Hmm.
FIDE Online Olympiad recently, that's with all the other countries in Division 2, the Philippines finished second place. So can you imagine, I think second place, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I think second place. So imagine that we're such a strong country. And right now, in December 12, the FIDE online cadets will happen. And those are for the youth. So under 18, under 15, under 13. And we have already a strong lineup ready for us for that. So imagine we
Mhm.
have a really good community. The problem is, I guess, it's just that we need more awareness. That
Yeah.
the people need to know more, need to know that basketball isn't the only sport in this country. There we have athletes who are succeeding in other sports, and not only
Yeah.
succeeding but really really becoming world class,
Mhm.
players. Yeah, because we don't have a Filipino, a full blown Filipino in the NBA, but we have a
Yeah.
world champion, Wesley So, who's playing against Magnus Carlsen, Hikaru Nakamura, and all these people, right? So see the difference there. People aren't really super, I guess, aware that we have
Aware.
players that are that strong already
Yeah.
in that level.
Definitely.
Mhm.
Okay. Um. Okay. So I like that you mentioned that we have not even that we have a bright future, but we have a really bright present. And that you were mentioning how the youth, like the sport has really grown over the past few years as well. Um. I wanted to get your personal take on how would you suggest that people who are interested in starting in chess, whether they're young, whether they're old, how do you what do you think would be the best approach for them to get into the sport, both in a normal non-pandemic world, but also
Mhm.
maybe even now while we're still on lockdown.
So to begin with chess, actually, what I like most about chess is for everyone. In basketball, if you're not if you're not gifted with height, sad to say, you can only reach a certain level. Like if you're born, let's say, at five something, then you cannot ever play in, like, the NBA, for example. That's like
Yeah.
a super far shot, right? But of course there are people like Spud Webb, but I won't talk
Yeah. Yeah.
about that. But like, you know what I mean. Like if you're not gifted when you're born, sad to say, you're until there only. Like the Philippines, were, you like you said earlier, were kind of like height challenged in terms of against like the US, or like there.
Yeah.
But one thing I like about chess is everyone is equal. You know, we all have an equal ground. We all start equally. Like we can all reach a certain level. We can all beat Magnus Carlsen, in other words. We all have the chance to beat him. And
Mhm.
I guess, in terms of those who are interested in chess to start, the main thing I would always ask my students when I teach, I already had students, I always ask them, how committed are you to playing chess? That's the biggest question that I'm asking. Because, for example, like studying law, you need a lot of time, you need a lot of effort to put into the game. And if you don't put that much effort into it, then where is it going to go, right? I'm gonna
Mhm.
tell you, these are the rewards present in front of you. You can perhaps become the next world champion. Who knows? You can become the next prodigy. Who knows? But the main question I want to ask you first is, how ready are you, and how willing are you to commit yourself to this path? Because for me, for example, I'm not also to the level of like Magnus Carlsen. That's really world champion level. But if I put in the time and effort, one day probably I can. Wesley can do it. I mean, why can't I, right? So in that similar thing, if those who are interested in chess to start, is I want them to have the right mindset first, not thinking
Mhm.
about playing yet. Put the board aside and think about your own. You should reflect first and think about your own mindset going into the game, and
Yeah.
um, your own thoughts and your own commitments before you go in. But maybe if you want to be more on the technical side of those who really want to start chess, I'd suggest, start by learning the principles, basic principles. So for example, play towards the center, develop your knights first
Yeah.
before bishops, that kind of thing. Don't bring out the queen too early. And from there, just continue immersing yourself into the game, maybe learn basic tactics, and then get yourself more experience by playing against stronger people, or just get yourself immersed more into the game. So that's always my suggestion to my students and to those who want to start chess. Honestly, I don't remember exactly my training regimen when I was younger, because it's hard to remember everything, especially when you've gone through so
Yeah.
much already, right? But
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, so there.
Okay. Okay. So I have a short segment, but right before that, I wanted to ask this because it's very relevant. You've discussed this in one of your videos, and for those watching on YouTube, I will link it somewhere here.
Thank you.
Um, you've discussed in one of your videos. So I have to. Uh, no, okay, wait. You've already discussed this. So, but that I have to ask. How popular? Because of how popular and how good the reviews are with Queen's Gambit on Netflix. How accurate is it? Both in like, um, not naman the story, because obviously, wala naman tayong control dun. But like,
Yes.
for how they play, and I guess for how she is as a chess player, like is what she goes through, with the imagining the board on the ceiling, for example, and so how accurate is that, for chess players off the board, and how accurate was the show with the moves on the board?
Mhm. I think the show, it's not the show's fault though. Before I say what I have to say,
Yeah.
it's not the show's fault, but I think the show really sped up the entire process. Like, I've been playing chess for, if I'm not mistaken, going 11 years or 12 years now. So imagine you cram 11, 12. But Beth is actually, when the show finished, she was 22. And she started at the age of 8. How many years is that? 22 minus 8. That's
14.
14. 14, yeah. So that's 14 years of a difference. And they crammed it into 7 episodes. Imagine how fast
Mm.
her development was. So I think that's the more inaccurate part. But I
Okay.
don't blame the show because they were limited to 7 episodes, right?
Yeah.
But in terms of the accuracy of the show, in terms of what the players go through, I mentioned it also in my YouTube review, that one thing I love most about the show is how they really emphasize the backdoor of a chess player. Like the backdoor, what the player goes through really when they play chess. It gets you to a state of drunkenness. Like, not literally, right? But
Yeah.
emotionally it does. Like, I've had times when if I lost my UAAP game, I'd go home really sad, like really, really depressed, to the point that I couldn't even do my homework. I couldn't even study
Mm.
properly. Because if I had things to do, example, if I had the paper to finish by the next week, and I only had Saturday evening or Sunday evening to finish, I couldn't even do it because my
Mm.
thoughts weren't right. I'd always go back to the game and be like, what did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? I should have done this, and it bothers you so much. It
Yeah.
puts you in this state where you're going insane, kind of going insane. And the show really did so well to encapsulate that experience together. With regards to the board on the ceiling, I think that's also a bit inaccurate because, like, Magnus himself said it too. He doesn't do that.
Okay.
Normally, what chess player, like for me, example, in Xavier, kasi our classrooms, they'd have square tiles on the floor. Like,
Okay.
yeah, like we had tiles on the floor, or whenever I'm in someone else's place or house, or like my own place. In the mall, like, for example, if you see squares on the floor, what do you associate that with? Right? Instead of the ceiling where there's just a plain white or a plain color of a ceiling, right? Rather than that, the floor, I think, is more
Mm.
accurate. Yeah. So in terms of the drugs and the vices, we're not allowed to drink during season. So coach specifically tells us to not we're not allowed to drink during season because it messes up with your head. And it
Mm.
shows naman with Beth that the more she got into the drinks and all that, it
Yeah.
really messed up her head as well. In terms of the green pill, I'm no comment on that. Like, of course, definitely UAAP is very strict about that, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Oh, yeah. Okay. Okay. But the I know they didn't like super show the whole game, but would you say that the moves or the descriptions that she learned from the from what's his name, Mr. Scheibel, for example,
Tribal,
or even the moves later on, were they accurate?
actually, the games in Queen's Gambit are based off real games, but not like the super famous games. And also the characters are
Mhm.
based off real people. So Borgov is actually a representation of Boris Spassky. Are you aware of who that guy is?
Not super familiar.
Oh, okay. So you mind if I tell you more about Boris
Yeah, go ahead.
Spassky? So what I like about Borgov, remember that last if you sorry, this is a spoiler already. So
It's
so sorry
fine,
in
man. It's
advance,
fine.
I'm going to spoil the seventh episode already. But if you remember the last scene where Borgov stood up and said, "This is your game," right? Gave the piece the best. One of the best moments in sports history was actually again when Boris Spassky played against Bobby Fischer in the 1972 World Championship. During that time, it was the Cold War, and it was really a struggle between the US and the USSR. And one of the main weapons that they used during that time was chess. That's why the Queen's Gambit was so perfect because it's also placed during the time of the Cold War, where the US and the USSR were really on a struggle, for propaganda and all that thing, all those things. But what happened during the actual game was Boris Spassky stood up from his table after Bobby Fischer played this wonderful game against him, and what he just did was clap, saying well played. He said that well played. He clapped in front of his opponent and like gave him like like the respect that he deserved. That he was actually really good, and the crowd stood up and clapped for Bobby Fischer as well. So that was a really great moment in history, in chess history. Like, imagine if your opponent stands up and claps for you.
Yeah.
That's something that no one does, right? And I think the show really did so well in portraying that. In terms of the game,
Mhm.
though, the moves, I'd say some of them, yeah, they're from based off some are based off real games, but not actually the super popular games like the World Championship games. But
Yeah.
sort of, yeah, they're accurate as well.
Okay, but there have been reports because of this show how there's been such a huge rise in like the sale of chessboards
Mhm.
and whatnot. So I guess as you mentioned, the sport has been growing. I think this would be just it would just be a big help in
Mhm.
addition to that.
Mhm.
Okay. To end with, I just have this short segment that I always have with all my guests. So you mentioned already that sorry, it's called Change Court, Change Sport. So you mentioned already that you've tried out basketball in the past. But I wanted to ask, is there any other sport that you've, I don't know, maybe back of your head, you've always been interested in trying, like you've always been curious about?
Um, I've played several sports already, and actually still playing them. I've played
Mhm.
basket. I've done swimming. I've done table tennis actually. So I played intrams in Xavier for table tennis because you're not allowed to play in the varsity if you're sport in Xavier. So let's say you're playing for
Okay.
your class, you can't play chess. I cannot choose chess as
I
my sport. So I chose table tennis. Um, Maybe if I were to try a new sport, I don't think it would be exactly a sport, but more of a recreational activity. So
Okay.
one thing I'd really like to try, or I really like to get myself more into, is mountain biking,
Okay. Biking. Yeah.
probably hiking, or yeah, all the
Yeah.
sorts. Yeah, so more of the individual sports, but really recreational.
Mhm. Okay. Last one. In the Philippines, who would you say is your favorite athlete, but from a different sport?
Tyler Tio, in my opinion. Not only because, of
Tyler
course, he's
Teo.
Xavier.
Yeah.
He's my batchmate. He's my batchmate. So of course, I'm gonna support the guy. Shout out if you're there, Tyler. He's my batchmate and savior. And what I like most about him, in terms of his attitude, is really a very humble person. And you see the way he plays; it's very solid as well. Plays
Yeah.
basketball very solid, and he contributes a lot to his team. I think he's really a great athlete, a very simple athlete, one who doesn't really boast a lot, but one who stays humble and really just focuses towards his game. Because it's so easy to get distracted with the crowd and so easy to
Yeah.
get pulled away from reality. But he always just stays focused in what he does. So that's what I admire most about him.
Yeah, he's been good ever since high school. I played against him and I'm a batch ahead, diba? So we were like
Yes.
older guys, but we were playing against you guys in a lower batch, and he destroyed us.
Tyler, yeah, Tyler. I don't know if you know sina Rafi, Romulo, Tyler Tio, Justin
Mm,
Velez, Austin. These are all my batchmates in Xavier's
yeah, yeah,
basketball team. Yeah,
yeah. But yeah, I mean, like I mentioned earlier, Xavier does have a really good has a like top notch basketball program.
team.
Okay. But yeah, that's it. I guess. Do you have, I guess, any message to all the Philippine chess fans, Philippine sports supporters in general?
So, guys, to all those who are watching this podcast, I'm Gavin, and my goal in life, really, my vocation is really to continue to play chess and love chess as much as possible. I'm here to improve Philippine chess, so just wait and see the process is coming. I'm building myself for that vocation, I guess.
Okay, like I mentioned earlier, I'm gonna try to link the video up here, but if not, it will also be in the details below. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, Gavin gives out chess lessons. So for those interested, you can message him also. Thank you everyone for tuning into this episode. Please don't forget to like and comment. You can let us know what you thought about this episode and what other sports that you'd want us to talk about. And of course, if you're watching on YouTube, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. You can also check out our other episodes, and you can also check out Gavin's videos and Gavin's channel. I'm gonna link it down below, or you can probably see it here if you're watching on YouTube. Thanks again, and see you right here on the next episode of Sports Season.